It's like everything I do, I'm on edge. I'm either gonna burst into tears or into flames at people for what I think is no reason.
I can't even really put my finger on it, but something like kicks in and I can't be happy.
I don't know what to do with myself. I can't seem to communicate how I want to, or people take what I say the wrong way.
I feel like I know where I want to go, but I can't, motivate myself to do what I want to do,
It's very frustrating because it feels like I'm me somewhere, but I can't get that out, or I can't express that.
If you could be truly yourself, who would that be? If you could reach your full potential, what would you be like? There's a basic personality within each of us, and it's not some buried, unknown, or different person, but an intensity of all that's best and most able in you. Rational, intelligent, competent, productive, and happy. Able to make the best possible choices to ensure your highest level of survival. You may have felt that way as a child. Yet, as you go through life, it seems like you move farther and farther away from your optimum state. You suffer fears, doubts, and anxieties. And despite your best intentions, you make mistakes, bad choices, unhealthy decisions, and sometimes behave or react irrationally. Why? There's an old saying that to err is human. But that saying is actually not true, because the portion of your mind that analyzes information to make rational decisions is actually incapable of error. Think of the analytical mind as a computing machine, but it's not just any computer, it's a perfect computer. It never makes a mistake. But any computer is only as good as the data that it calculates with. Now, imagine a calculator that's been tampered with so that the number 7 is permanently held down and always added into every calculation. Add 2 plus 2 on this calculator, and it'll give you the answer 11. If you didn't know that the 7 was being held down, you'd think this calculator is calculating wrong. But in fact, it's actually calculating correctly with the data it's being given. 2 plus 2 plus 7 does equal 11. If incorrect data gets into the machine gives wrong answers. In the same way, the human mind is affected by incorrect data. When incorrect data is used by your mind to make decisions and solve problems, you compute or react in an abnormal or aberrated manner. The word aberration means a departure from rational thought or behavior. It basically means to err, to make mistakes. A person with aberrations is being irrational to some degree. Some label such behavior as having some kind of disorder. Others call it being quirky or eccentric.
Last time they weren't sweet enough. 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, and then we've got to make sure that we've got double the cream cheese.
Or having faults or unusual habits. Nevertheless, it's all irrational behavior. These are not traits of your basic personality.
Whoa. Come on. No. Go high for me. No.
Irrationality is simply your mind's inability to calculate right answers from its data. Your mind poses and resolves problems relating to your survival. The better the data it uses to compute with, the saner its solutions, and the more you survive. Certainly mistakes can be made if you have incorrect data or not enough data. But irrational decisions and behavior can also come from another far more vicious source. As you've seen, every moment of your life, your mind is recording and storing your experiences. Every perception of every incident, including sight, sound, smell, feeling, taste, sensation, pain, rhythm, weight, and emotion. Most of this information is stored in the analytical mind, which is your conscious, aware mind that thinks, remembers, and calculates. But incidents that contain pain and unconsciousness are stored in a different part of your mind called the reactive mind, because it simply reacts without analysis. These painful experiences, called engrams, are hidden from your analytical mind, and their contents can act like held-down sevens, unknowingly forcing you to calculate or behave in an irrational manner. Engrams are the single source of your aberrations. For instance, even your perceptions can become aberrated by engrams. Some people don't always see in full color, or hear in full tone, or fully sense with their organs of smell, taste, touch, or sensation. While some people might think the smell of a turkey cooking in the oven is wonderful,
Oh, that smells so good.
one person may be sickened by the smell of it, while another may not smell it at all. Engrams are like hidden, held-down sevens, affecting your decisions, your actions, your health, and the way you see and think about the world. So the problem of eliminating aberration is the problem of finding the hidden, held-down sevens. If you no longer had these held-down sevens, you would think and behave very rationally, forming the best possible solutions with the data you have. Your senses would improve and you'd perceive yourself and the world around you accurately. Your physical vitality and health would be improved, and you'd be able to recall everything which has ever happened to you. You'd be returned to your basic personality, able to utilize your imagination and creativity to their fullest. You'd be more intelligent, more efficient, more productive, and happier. You'd be surviving at a very high level, free to enjoy life and reach your full potential. In other words, you'd be yourself. Dianetics enables you to locate these hidden incidents and free yourself from their negative effects. A person who no longer has these aberrations is called a clear. The term clear comes from the concept of clearing the calculator of all its held-down sevens. A clear is sane, rational, able to enjoy life and be the best he can be. You can be clear. That's the goal of Dianetics. You'll learn much more about the state of clear by reading Dianetics. For more information about the subjects discussed in this film, see the chapter entitled The Clear. What's your primary goal in life? Well, no matter what else you're trying to do, ultimately, you're trying to survive. And you're not alone in your quest. This primary urge to survive is shared by everyone around you, and every animal, and every tree, and insect, and every living thing. The purpose to survive motivates all the decisions, activities, and behaviors of every form of life. But you're not trying to just avoid pain and death. You want to live long and live well. You're seeking a high level of existence, a life full of pleasure and accomplishment, with an abundance of all the things you need to survive. How well are you surviving? And how can you improve the quality of your life? Well, the answers to those questions can actually be found on this graph. Here, your urge to survive would be an arrow that thrusts away from pain and toward pleasure. We call this thrust the survival dynamic. Your potential to survive can be found to fall somewhere on this graph, which is divided into zones. These zones also form a scale of emotional tones. The higher the zone, the better your potential to survive, and the happier you'll be. For example, when you're operating at the top of this scale in Zone 4, you're confident and enthusiastic about life and your goals. You can easily solve problems relating to your survival, and you have an excellent chance of a long and happy life.
How do you like this style?
If you're in Zone 3, you experience general happiness and well-being, but your attitude towards life is cautious and conservative. In the middle of Zone 2, you're in boredom. You've lost confidence and direction in life, but you're not defeated. You're just sort of idling in one spot. That's boredom. Slightly lower than that, you become resentful and antagonistic toward people and things that stand in the way of your goals. You have a mediocre chance for success, and it's a bearable existence. When you drop down into Zone 1, you're angry about everything. You're fighting against threatened losses, so you act impulsively and destructively, and you rarely tell the truth. This zone includes violent efforts to survive. Further down from that, you're in fear. When you think you're about to experience a loss of some kind, you become afraid. When you drop down to the middle of Zone 0, you're in grief. This is the emotion you experience when you've suffered a loss. And when you're at the bottom of Zone 0, you're nearly dead. And emotionally, you're in apathy. You've lost so much in life and have been defeated so often that you're no longer struggling toward your goals or even trying to survive. You've given up. Of course, you know that your emotions can go up and down all day. Good news, successes, and pleasures can raise your emotions toward happiness. Bad news, failures, losses, and pain can bring your emotions down. You've seen this in life. Take, for instance, a child who's trying to get something he thinks is very important to his survival, like a candy bar. At first, he comes to Mom, happy and cheerful, asking for a candy bar.
Hey, Mom.
Hi, honey.
Can I have a candy bar?
No, honey. Lunch is going to be ready soon.
When she refuses to give him one, he's not quite so happy anymore. He explains why he wants it.
But I'm hungry now.
If he still fails to get it, he'll get antagonistic about it.
Oh, don't do that.
If that fails, he'll get angry. If Mom still says no, he might lie about why he wants it.
Well, actually, it's not for me, it's for my friend.
Your friend already left.
If that doesn't work, he'll start to cry. He's now in
No,
grief.
honey, now stop whining.
And if Mom still won't give it to him, he sinks into apathy.
Fine, I didn't really want it anyway.
He has given up. This child went down the tone scale because something he thought would assist his survival was denied him. The same thing will happen if something threatens his survival. For example, when this child is approached by danger, he'll drop down the tone scale from cheerful to fear to grief the more he feels threatened. These threats to your survival are called suppressors because they thrust against your urge to survive. In their efforts to survive, they threaten or suppress your chances of surviving. Here's an example. If you were in the business of pushing around concrete, even its weight would be a sort of suppressor because it makes it harder to perform your job. And then there's your boss's bad temper. He can become a suppressor. And on top of that, there's the heat of the day. That too can be a suppressor if it makes it difficult to do your job. These suppressors thrust down, threatening your survival in some way, and you have to thrust back with persistence and solutions. The stronger your thrust, the better you overcome them. For example, the fourth zone is the area of high response to problems, so you'd find it far easier to overcome those suppressors.
Good work, everybody. We can do this.
Than in zone 0, where the suppressors would seem to be too great to overcome. Now, all of these exterior forces thrusting against you could make you think it's you against the world, and that you're surviving only for you. But consider this. While the tree that drops a branch on your car could definitely be considered a suppressor, trees supplied the wood for the home that keeps you warm and dry. And the trees provide shade from that hot sun, and a home for squirrels, who happen to bury nuts that grow into trees. And man plants trees, so trees depend on man, just as man depends on trees. So you see, life is clearly a group effort. The dynamics of others combine with yours to overcome life's suppressors. None survive alone. So you're obviously not surviving just for yourself. And you can't survive just for procreation, or for the sake of your business, or only for the good of mankind. You need a balance of all of these factors. So your purpose to survive can be subdivided into 4 purposes. In Dianetics, these 4 thrusts are called the 4 dynamics, and they encompass all of your purposes and activities. The first dynamic is your urge to reach the highest potential of survival in terms of yourself. The second dynamic is your urge to reach the highest potential of survival in terms of sex and the creation and rearing of children. The third dynamic is your urge to reach the highest potential of survival in terms of a group. And the fourth dynamic is your urge to reach the highest potential of survival for all mankind. None of these dynamics is more important than the others, but they are an expansion. As you rise up the tone scale in life, you naturally expand your sphere of interests and actions into the other dynamics. So these dynamics actually sweep out from self to family, to groups, to encompass all of mankind. Any problem or situation you encounter will be found within these dynamics. The purpose of your mind is to resolve problems relating to your survival along all 4 of your dynamics. Obviously, the more right those decisions are, the better you'll survive. So what constitutes a right decision? Well, something that's right or good is something that aids the survival of you, your family, your groups, or mankind.
Turn around! The money!
And things that are wrong or evil are the things that harm or inhibit the survival of you, your family, your groups, or mankind. So the optimum solution to any problem would be the one that does the greatest good for the greatest number of your dynamics. For example, buying a new car when you're living in a cramped apartment with a baby on the way is a decision that only benefits a little bit of your first dynamic and ignores the rest. But if you put the money toward a new home for your growing family, you're not only improving your first dynamic living quarters, but you're enhancing the survival of your second dynamic as well. So that's the better decision. Yet, as you know, not all solutions appear to be this simple. There's a natural struggle between the dynamics. You might think you're doing the right thing by spending the majority of your time at work.
Perfect, that works. Now we need a melody.
But you may actually be sacrificing your other dynamics for the good of your third dynamic group.
Great job, everybody. Great job.
While that's great for your business, it's not a solution that enhances the greatest number of your dynamics. And if one dynamic is suppressed or injured, the rest will suffer as well, because they're all connected. You see, your position on this graph is determined by the average position of all 4 of your dynamics. If you're doing pretty well in 2 of them, and not doing well in 2 of them, your position on the graph would be the result of the average between them. Now, If your mind were working perfectly, you'd be able to compute right from wrong, good from bad, and find the optimum solutions necessary to survive at a very high level across all of your dynamics. And your survival potential would obviously be very high. But to be honest, you have engrams, and engrams get restimulated.
I think I'm coming down with something.
And when an engram is restimulated, the force of your reactive mind is very strong. You drop down the tone scale and think and behave irrationally. So engrams are suppressors to your survival. They suppress your intelligence by feeding irrational information into your analytical mind. And they suppress your dynamic thrust by trapping your life force and lowering your emotional tone. And incidentally, the lower your emotional tone drops, the lower your physical tone drops as well. Now, there's one more interesting thing about this graph. A line can be drawn which predicts how long you could live. The better you can overcome the suppressors in your life, the better your chance of surviving. So if your combined dynamic thrust is up here, you'll potentially live longer than someone whose combined dynamic thrust is down here. The whole intent of auditing is to raise you up to the higher zones of this scale. By eliminating the negative effects engrams have over you, Dianetics removes the blocks from your dynamics and increases your ability to think clearly and rationally. In other words, the more engrams you erase, the higher you'll rise on this scale, and the better your chances of living longer and happier. Which is, after all, your primary goal, right? The survival graph you've just seen in this film is discussed in detail in the chapter entitled The Goal of Man in Dianetics. You can read about your dynamics and the optimum solution to any problem in the chapter entitled The Four Dynamics. And to learn much more about the emotional tone scale, read Emotion and the Dynamics. What is it that sometimes makes you feel dull or stupid? Or less aware of life around you? Did you know that most people are operating with about 10% of their potential awareness? There's a definite relationship between your analytical power and your survival potential. As one goes down, so does the other. Put it this way, if you're well and happy and enthusiastic, your analytical power can be considered to be high, in zones 3 and 4. But if you're unconscious and in agony, your analytical power may be ranging in zone 0. The same thing happens over the span of your life. The more engrams you accumulate, the less conscious and aware you are, and the lower your potential to survive. Every engram contains unconsciousness. Unconsciousness meaning a lowering of your awareness. When an engram is received, your analytical power is shut down to some degree by the pain. It's as though your analytical mind blows its fuses, as any good machine would, to protect its delicate system from being destroyed by overload. So when an engram is received, in comes a destructive wave of physical pain, and out goes some or all of the fuses of your analytical mind. Even if the duration of the pain is only an instant, there's still an instant when your analytical power is reduced. For instance, if you burn your finger on a soldering iron, there's a small instant of pain and just a small amount of analytical shutdown. But if you have surgery, you could be unconscious for hours and there would be an extreme amount of shutdown. Because your analytical mind is shut down, it doesn't know that the engram's data is coming in, so you're not consciously aware that the data exists. Everything you're perceiving is recorded straight into your reactive mind, which is rugged enough to work during moments of pain. Included in that data is the unconsciousness you were experiencing. When an engram is restimulated, it puts everything it contains, including this unconsciousness, into greater or lesser operation. Therefore, as part of the commands of the engram, some of your analytical power turns off. This is a very mechanical thing. It's just like turning on and off an electric light. Flip the switch and the light goes off. In your mind, this doesn't happen quite so sharply. Your analytical power is dimmed in degrees, and not as much as in the original engram, but it's enough to reduce your ability to think clearly. You just feel dull, stupid, or mentally confused. Here's an example. Let's say you have an operation. You're given anesthesia and cut in the chest. This is an engram. Your analytical power has been turned off, first by the anesthesia, which is technically a poison, and then by the pain of the incision. Your reactive mind is now recording everything, including the clink of the instruments, the comments of the doctors, all the smells and sensations, as well as the condition of being unconscious. At some point in your future, when this engram is restimulated, perhaps by noises that sound like the clinks of the instruments in the engram, the unconsciousness of the operation will also be restimulated.
Hey, are you listening to me?
Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I was saying yesterday.
This shuts down your analytical ability to some degree, slowing down your thought processes. Now, sometimes the restimulating factors in the environment are always around you, so you're continually being restimulated. This means your analytical power is constantly being reduced. A person who has many engrams in restimulation is ordinarily operating with less than a quarter of his analytical awareness. This is one of the main reasons why once these engrams are relieved, your intelligence can soar. As you've seen, when an engram gets restimulated, so does the unconsciousness it contains. But to make matters worse, because all of your engrams have this unconsciousness in common, when the unconsciousness of one engram gets restimulated, it restimulates the unconsciousness of all the earlier engrams as well. So you actually have one very long chain of unconsciousness in restimulation. Your reactive mind shuts down your analytical thought processes and proceeds on reaction. This can cause you to feel nervous or frightened or in a rage.
What are you doing?
And because your awareness is so dimmed, you don't know you're acting irrationally. The engram has taken over, manipulating you like a puppet. Your analytical mind will then justify your actions because its job is to make sure you're always right.
I don't think so. Get off this field right now.
The contents of your reactive mind are deeply buried under foggy layers of this unconsciousness. Release this unconsciousness, and the engrams hidden beneath it will come into view, particularly the earliest ones.
Good. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Okay. I hear my mom saying, "Help. Somebody help me."
When an engram is contacted in auditing, the unconsciousness in it reduces the preclear's awareness, and he's much less able to think.
I don't know. A siren. I hear a siren.
In most early engrams, such as prenatals, after a first or second recounting of the incident, he may start to yawn and yawn. This means the unconsciousness in the engram is releasing, and these yawns are turning on his analytical power.
Voices shouting out. Get me out?
Sometimes the preclear may suddenly start to trail off and mutter and almost fall asleep. This means a heavy area of unconsciousness is releasing, or boiling off, as auditors call it. He may fumble around, act dopey, and go into a restless, dreamy sleep. He mumbles and mutters foolish things. he's releasing the unconsciousness that's keeping him from contacting the contents of the engram. It's very important to let this happen without any interruption, no matter how long it takes. Don't talk to him or disturb him in any way. Just wait it out. 5 or 10 minutes of boil-off is not uncommon, and it may last longer. This isn't sleep, even though it may seem that way. If his engram contains a command telling him to go to sleep, he simply just goes into a smooth sleep. Boil-off is different. It's a little restless and full of muttering and floundering and dreams. Soon a somatic contained in the engram will turn on. This had been buried by the unconsciousness.
My side hurts. My shoulder.
I understand. Please continue.
There's a man's voice. It says, I'm gonna hold your hand. I'm gonna hold your hand now.
He'll then run the engram a few more times, yawning a little and then brightening up.
It says, hold. I think it's gonna be okay. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. You know, the pain is gone now.
Good. Please continue.
The more you're unburdened from this unconsciousness, the more you'll improve and the more analytically aware you'll become. One of the reasons it's so very important to find and erase the basic engram is because it's the first engram on that long chain of unconsciousness that gets restimulated. Release the unconsciousness in that engram, and to some degree, you've reduced the unconsciousness all the way up the chain. You could say that the purpose of Dianetics is to awaken you in every period of your life that you've been forced into unconsciousness. With this unconsciousness released, you're able to accurately perceive the world around you. You think faster and feel happier, more alert and aware, and life becomes bright again. In other words, Dianetics wakes you up. To read more about the analytical shutdown contained in engrams and how this affects you in life, go to the chapter entitled The Cell and the Organism. You can remember many unhappy incidents in your life which seem to be the cause of your troubles. As you look back on these moments of sadness, mental anguish, and misfortune, some can seem so terrible that they must be the cause of your aberrations.
Just get out of here, man.
But these conscious-level experiences are actually only guideposts leading toward the hidden incidents that are the actual source of the trouble. Engrams. An engram contains physical pain. It lies hidden below your level of awareness. And it can lie there, dormant, for a very long time. In other words, it won't have any effect on you until it becomes activated. So what causes this activation? Well, let's take a look at a fish who receives an engram. One day he happens to swim into salty yellow water that tastes of iron. He's just taken a mouthful of shrimp when a bigger fish attacks him and injures his tail. The shallow salty water, the taste of iron, the shrimp, and the pain in his tail are all perceptions recorded in this engram. To his reactive mind, every one of these perceptions is now equal to every other one. In other words, the shallow water equals an iron taste, equals yellow water, equals shrimp in mouth, which equals a pain in his tail. Any one of these perceptions equals any other. This engram is now stored dormant in his reactive mind. It will take a similar conscious level experience to stir that engram up. He heals his tail and goes on about his affairs. But one day he's swimming in similar salty waters that taste of iron when he's rushed at by a larger fish and gets his tail bumped. This time he's not hurt, just bumped. But something has happened. There were enough perceptions in his current environment that were similar to the perceptions in his engram to cause his reactive mind to activate that dormant engram. This is called a key-in. The term key-in is taken from electronics. A key is a device that opens or closes an electronic circuit. So when we say an engram has keyed in, we mean it has been activated and thrown into circuit. It's now hooked up to the operating machinery of his body without his control, ready to be very easily restimulated anytime any part of it appears in his environment. The next time the fish swims into shallow, salty water, he begins to feel nervous. He knows something is wrong in the environment, but he doesn't know what. The shallow, salty water has restimulated the original engram. When the water becomes yellow, he begins to get a small pain in his tail where he was injured in the engram. His reactive mind is using the warning of pain to force him to swim away before he gets hurt. But he swims on. Suddenly, he sees some shrimp, and the pain in his tail gets stronger, and away he goes in a flash. Now, no fish was after him, but something was telling him he was in a dangerous place. In a fish, this reactive behavior is a survival activity of a sort and may serve a purpose. But in a human being, this survival mechanism has long outlived its usefulness, but it is still there. Let's see how this applies to a woman who has a cooking accident.
I better get my salad.
Yeah, please do.
This incident, containing pain and partial unconsciousness, is an engram. Its contents include the sound of the running faucet, the sight of the spilled pot lying on the floor, the pain of the burn on her hand, as well as the statements her friend made, including, "Stay right there,"
Stay right there, okay? I'm gonna call 911.
and "Look at me."
Look at me, stay right there.
All of these perceptions and more are now recorded into this woman's reactive mind, where it will remain dormant until something keys it in. At a later date, this woman may be a little tired or worried or under stress or in some way analytically less alert. If her present environment contains enough similarities to the elements found in the dormant engram, it will key in that engram without her knowing it. The recording will play back, and she'll dramatize the same words, thoughts, and emotions that the engram contains.
Are you okay? Stay right there. Look at me. I told you not to play in the kitchen. You can get hurt in here. Go to your room. Now.
She may even feel some pain in her hands where she was burned before. The things in her environment now, like the kitchen, the pot of water falling, and the faucet running, are re-stimulators. They're similar enough to the perceptions in her original engram to key it in. So even though this situation with her children is a conscious level experience, it gets its force from the engram which came before it. This engram can now be very easily re-stimulated. As her life continues, she'll encounter many more moments that contain similarities to that initial incident. Each of these moments will re-stimulate that original engram again to some degree. The amount of re-stimulation will depend on how many re-stimulators are in her environment.
So you know what I'm saying? I mean, she's 12 years old. What is she doing smoking? So I say, look at me.
Sue, look at me.
This re-stimulating incident is called a lock. She sees a pot of hot water and the same friend who was in her engram.
Perfect.
These perceptions are locked to the earlier incident of getting burned by boiling water.
Anyways, so it turns out
a lock is a moment of mental discomfort containing no physical pain and no great loss. It's an incident which is in conscious recall and which seems to be the reason a person is aberrated.
I'm just telling you because I know your daughter's friends with Tiffany and she should be careful.
This woman thinks she's worried about what her friend has told her in this lock experience, but she's actually feeling nervous because her earlier engram has been re-stimulated. A lock doesn't contain unconsciousness or a blow or a burn or impact. It may contain a feeling of pain or illness, but the lock isn't the source of that feeling. For example, you see an egg and you feel sick. This is a lock. the perceptions of seeing an egg and feeling sick are locked to the engram of getting sick from eating an egg. A lock seems to be the reason you're aberrated.
Who do you think you are?
Here's another example.
Touch me.
This woman's boyfriend choked her, slapped her, and then left her. There was both pain and unconsciousness present at the time, so the incident was recorded in her reactive mind as an engram. Years later, in a different relationship, she has a similar argument with her new boyfriend.
We're over there like every other weekend. And if she's not bad enough, her new boyfriend, what's his name?
They're your friends too.
I don't want to argue about this again. I'm out of here.
But this incident contains no physical pain, just mental anguish. It's a lock, a conscious level experience that gets its force from the engram it is locked to. It's re-stimulated the earlier engram, but she doesn't know that.
Baby,
Because the man left her in the original incident, she irrationally thinks the new boyfriend will leave her too. Her aberration appears to be caused by this new argument, the lock, but it's actually caused by the engram lying beneath it. Throughout your existence, you'll experience many incidents which have similar content. For while this woman's injury was most certainly an engram, she could have experienced earlier engrams and locks that were somehow similar to that one. This series of similar engrams and locks is called a chain. As you've seen, the incidents forming a chain could contain the same kind of illness or injury, or the same words and phrases, the same person, or any similar perceptions within the incidents. There's no telling how many chains a person has, and each chain can have hundreds of locks and engrams extending far back in time. At the very bottom of every chain is the basic or first engram on the chain. No engram will lift if the basic engram of that chain hasn't lifted. Therefore, in auditing, the basic engram of the chain is the goal. The earlier the engram is, the easier it is to reduce. Later engrams contain their own force plus the force of all the similar previous engrams. So any incident that doesn't reduce always has a similar incident earlier on its chain.
He starts to strangle me. And then he smacks me and I fall down.
Therefore, if an incident doesn't reduce after many recountings, ask, is there an earlier incident like this?
Is there an earlier incident like this?
Oh, yes, there is.
Very good. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
I'm 3 years old, and my dad is spanking me.
Run that earlier incident just as you would any incident. And if that one doesn't reduce after several recountings, find an even earlier one.
Okay. Is there an earlier incident like this?
I'm in this dark place, and I get this hit, and my whole body is moving.
The basic on the chain is always your goal. Once that has been lifted, the later incidents on that chain can then be easily reduced or erased if necessary. And all its locks will automatically discharge and vanish the moment the engram holding them is erased.
That's why I'm afraid of the
So, the conscious level experiences that you think are causing your problems are at best only guideposts leading toward the actual trouble. The earlier hidden engrams that are the real source of aberration.
I can't believe it. That's so funny.
Key-ins and locks are first discussed in the chapter The Reactive Mind. The chapter entitled Keying in the Engram will take a deeper look at this subject and give you some examples of engrams being keyed in. We've all seen a child throw a tantrum, or someone exhibiting a fit of rage. You've probably seen people go through a whole irrational set of actions. It's as though in these moments we're not really being ourselves. And in fact, we aren't.
My credit. Do you really think you're gonna talk to me?
When an engram gets restimulated,
Don't you ever talk to me like that. That's what you get for sassing your father. That's what you get.
we may act exactly like the people contained in that engram.
Don't you ever talk to me like that. That's what you get for sassing your father. That's what you get.
Doing and saying exactly the same things done and said to us.
That's what you get for sassing your father. That's what you get. Don't stop.
Let's look again at the woman who receives an engram in which she's knocked down and kicked.
Get up!
She's told that she's a faker,
You're such a faker.
that she's no good,
You are no good.
and that she's always messing things up.
You're always messing things up.
In the engram, a chair is knocked over and a vase is thrown to the floor, and a motorcycle is passing by in the street outside. Sometime later in life, when this woman is tired or stressed, she hears a man yelling at someone
Someone else wants your job. You such a faker.
as a motorcycle passes by. These things are similar enough to the perceptions in the earlier engram to cause it to become restimulated without her knowing it. She starts to feel nervous, but she doesn't know why. When her child knocks over a vase, she begins to act out or dramatize the earlier engram.
You're always messing things up.
In other words, she'll say and do the same things contained in the engram, or make the same decisions demanded by the engram.
You're such a faker. You're no good.
This behavior is called dramatization. Dramatization is a replay in the present of something that happened in the past. There are degrees of dramatization. If an engram is only partially restimulated, the degree of dramatization will be mild. But when it's fully restimulated, a person dramatizing an engram is like an actor playing his dictated part word for word, going through a whole series of irrational actions.
Can't do this anymore. It's over. I can't do this anymore. It's over.
A dramatization is like a recording, which can be played over and over.
I can't do this anymore.
What are
it's
you
over.
What are you talking about? Dan!
An engram can even command you to be someone else. An engram containing the statement, "You are just like your grandfather," could later make you assume the personality of your grandfather, acting, thinking, or suffering, or feeling just like your grandfather. This can go so far that if Grandpa has a habit of wearing a hat in the house and eating with his knife, so will you, because you're dramatizing his personality. In Dianetics, this personality is called a valence. A valence is an identity. A person has his own valence, in other words, his own identity. Then there is available to him the valences or personalities of all persons who appear in his engrams. When you're restimulated, you'll dramatize the valence of one of the people present in the engram. In the case of the woman being knocked down and kicked, there were two valences present, hers and her husband's. Which will she later dramatize? Well, in a dangerous situation, the thing to do is survive. So who survived better? Who won?
Sick of it. I'm so sick of it.
Well, she didn't. She got hurt. Her husband won. Therefore, it's her husband's valence that will be dramatized. Let's look again at what happened when the engram got restimulated.
Someone else wants your job. You won't.
Her reactive mind stupidly thought that she was in the same dangerous situation again. But this time, it wanted her to win. So it commanded her to act like the winner in the engram. Be like him.
You're always messing things up.
You're always messing things up.
So she dramatized her husband's valence.
Get up!
She said and did to her child exactly what her husband said and did to her.
You're such a faker.
But hitting a child is not acceptable behavior in most societies.
No good.
If society won't let her dramatize the winning valence, the reactive mind takes on the other valence, the losing valence. What would happen in the same situation if she dramatized herself instead?
You're always messing things up.
She'd have to think that she's always messing things up.
It's okay, honey. It's okay. It's not your fault. It's not your fault at all.
I'm always messing things up.
and she'd have to feel the re-stimulated pain from all those blows. You have a basic personality, your own true identity, but you color or drown your personality with valences as you win or lose in life.
It's okay, honey. I'll pay for it, okay? It's not your fault. Not a big deal. It's just a little vase.
When you're in your own valence, you're being yourself. With Dianetics, you can be restored to your own basic personality, your own true self. Dramatizations, valences, and other effects of engrams are covered in the chapter entitled The Cell and the Organism. You often hear people say some pretty derogatory things about themselves.
I am so fat.
I always screw things up.
I'll never love again.
Where do these negative thoughts and self-destructive decisions come from? The answer to that lies within the language contained in your engrams. Any words or phrases heard during moments of pain and unconsciousness are faithfully recorded into the reactive mind, and their power cannot be underestimated.
Is he okay?
No, I think he's in trouble. We gotta call an ambulance.
Oh man, I'm gonna get fired for this.
Stay here.
When later re-stimulated by similar things in the environment, these words and phrases become commands. They react on the analytical mind in such a way as to make you behave irrationally.
I think he's in trouble.
Oh man, I'm gonna get fired for this.
For example, if someone believes he's in trouble and he's going to get fired, even though he's good at his job, he has an engram which tells him he's about to be fired. If someone thinks she's ugly, she has an engram about being ugly. If someone is afraid of dogs, he has an engram which tells him to fear dogs. Now, that engram probably contains only one specific dog, and probably a dog which might be long dead. But since his reactive mind thinks in terms of identities, one thing identical to another, it can't tell the difference between that one dog long ago and all dogs. So it thinks the way to survive is to avoid all dogs. Sanity is the ability to tell the difference between things. The less you can tell differences, the less rational you are. People who can't differentiate between someone in their engrams and a whole group of people in general are talking right out of their engrams.
I don't believe a word that he said.
Why?
All men are liars.
Everybody hates me! Go!
All women are alike.
Some people, when they're re-stimulated, will say the same irrational comment over and over again.
So, what works better for you?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
For example,
Shouldn't we call a plumber?
the man who's always doubting himself and others with the same comment
I don't know. I'm not sure.
is talking right out of his engrams. But this goes even further. The things a pre-clear says about his engrams in therapy will be right out of the content of those engrams.
Please continue.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not doing this right. Maybe this isn't even an engram. I don't know.
The reactive mind thinks literally. Therefore, it interprets the words in its commands literally, regardless of what their meaning might have been when they were spoken.
Rachel, are you okay? Here, take this. Take it. You'll feel better.
That statement might be interpreted by the moronic reactive mind to mean if you literally take things, you'll somehow feel better. The reactive mind interprets every statement it contains literally.
Did I break it?
I can't feel anything.
Sentences which contain the word I, such as I can't feel anything, I can't think, and I can't remember, will be applied to you in the most literal sense. For example, the command, "I can't feel anything," could affect your ability to feel emotions as well as your ability to be aware of physical pain. Further, when this engram is contacted in auditing, its commands can shut off both the emotions and the pain contained in it.
What's the somatic? I can't feel anything.
Certain engramic commands can have another especially harmful effect.
Man, you're a loser!
Once heavily restimulated, the statement, "you're a loser," could create a voice in your head that will actually talk to you, criticizing, advising, or commanding you. The voice can be in the form of thought or even spoken out loud.
Whoa, look at her. She's awesome. Are you kidding? She would never go for you. Maybe if I say something. There's no way, man. You're a loser. Just keep walking.
In Dianetics, this is referred to as a demon circuit. No, there really isn't a demon in your head, but it seems like it because this circuit acts like a person separate from you. Unlike an engram, a demon circuit can think. Because it's compartmented off a part of your analytical mind, it can make up its own commands, commands which are not contained in the engrams. You could have a demon circuit that always criticizes you. Or you might have one that seems to order you around, ridicule you when you do something wrong, or even argue with you. A demon circuit is installed by commands that are addressed to you.
You're a loser!
They try to dominate you or invalidate your judgment, such as, "You don't know what you're doing. You've got to listen to me," or "You've got to control yourself," and so on. This man has a demon circuit, which tells him he's no good. So he believes he's no good.
What are you doing? This isn't working. You should never have taken this job. It's way over your head. You're no good, and you know it.
But if he can redirect this command so that it applies to other people instead, he won't have to feel that way about himself. So he may dramatize by telling another that they're no good.
You know what? It's not gonna work. You're not gonna work. You're no good. You're no good.
Demons are parasites. They are pieces of the analytical mind compartmented off and therefore unavailable for larger computation. As they accumulate, your analytical mind becomes tied up and overloaded, slowing down your thought process. That's why most people typically run on only a small percentage of their mental power. When these demon circuits are deleted with Dianetics, you recover the use of those portions of your analytical mind. Your IQ can soar, and you'll no longer experience those negative thoughts and self-destructive behaviors. Demon circuits and their effects are explained in greater detail in the chapter entitled "The Demons." Why do some people always seem to be sick or stay sick for long periods of time, while some heal faster than others? And what about those physical problems that seem to have no genuine physical cause? If engrams cause mental errors in the form of irrational thoughts and behavior, can they also cause physical errors that affect your body's abilities and health? Yes, they can and they do. The term for this is psychosomatic illness. Psycho refers to the mind, and somatic refers to the body. The term psychosomatic means the mind making the body ill, or illnesses which have been created physically within the body by the mind. You know your mind controls the functions of your body, so it makes sense that your mind has the ability to cause your body to be ill or in pain. Here's one way this can happen. This is an engram containing physical pain, an injury to your arm. The pain in your arm is recorded, along with all the other perceptions in the incident.
Stay still. You need to stay still.
Now, when that engram is later re-stimulated by similar perceptions in the environment, your reactive mind plays back the recording, and you dramatize the contents of the engram.
You need to stay still.
But if for some reason you don't dramatize exactly as commanded, the reactive mind tries to force you to do so by turning on the pain that engram contains. That portion of your body which was injured or ill when this engram was received may become painful or ill again to some degree, without you knowing why. In Dianetics, we say that the somatic has appeared. The word somatic refers to any pain, sensation, or body condition you experience as a result of engrams. Just how many different kinds of somatics could you have? Well, that depends in part upon all your previous illnesses and injuries, and in part upon how many conditions your body can generate out of the words and phrases contained in your engrams. Here's an example. A little girl falls into a pool.
Help!
In the commotion, someone near her shouts.
She can't breathe!
Now, the reactive mind interprets the words in its commands quite literally, regardless of what their meaning might have been when they were spoken. So even after she's grown up, this girl suffers from asthma because her reactive mind is telling her body that she literally can't breathe. This is another way the reactive mind makes the body ill. So, many common physical problems could be psychosomatic. Allergies, ulcers, arthritis, high blood pressure, migraine headaches, chronic rashes, and bizarre aches and pains, just to name a few. In addition to that, the words spoken around you when you're injured or ill can even affect your ability to recover or heal.
What happened? Twist your knee? Here, let me take a look at it. Straighten it out. Here we go. Whoa!
What do you think?
This ain't gonna heal anytime soon.
The command in this engram can actually delay the healing process, especially if day after day you're in the same environment containing the same perceptions that are stored in that engram. These are re-stimulators, and they'll constantly re-stimulate that engram and the pain and commands it contains.
Son, look, I know it's rough.
I know, Coach. This ain't gonna heal anytime soon.
Any disease, even those caused by germs, can also be brought on by engrams. For example, you could have an engram command which dictates that you're going to become sick in general.
Excuse me. Yeah, thank you. Do you know what time it is?
I'm gonna be sick. I think I'm gonna be sick.
When a command like this gets re-stimulated, your mind orders your body to become sick, and you'll become ill with whatever illness is going around, with whatever germs that are available in your environment.
Hi, honey.
Hey.
How are you?
Oh, don't ask.
Gosh, you are burning up.
Maybe bring
What's more, having engrams in general lowers your body's physical resistance to disease. When any engram goes into re-stimulation, your ability to resist sickness is automatically decreased. You may have noticed that people in zones 3 and 4 of the survival graph tend to ward off disease much better than those in the lower zones. That's because germs, in their efforts to survive, act as suppressors to your survival. If you have a strong dynamic thrust, you can fight off these suppressors far better than someone lower on the scale with the weaker dynamic thrust.
Not ready?
No. Sorry, man. No can do. I feel horrible. I think I caught whatever Bill had.
Really? I feel fine.
Thanks for rubbing it in, man.
Hey, I feel better, man.
Engrams are the single and sole source of psychosomatic illness. Clear away the engrams, and you not only eliminate your aberrations, but your potential for psychosomatic illnesses as well. Now, just as the somatics in an engram can be re-stimulated in everyday life, They're also re-experienced to some degree when you contact them in auditing.
My arm's starting to ache a little.
In fact, running out the somatics of an engram containing physical pain is an important aspect of reducing it.
What's the somatic?
I feel pressure, like I'm being compressed. I feel pressure on my head, right here.
Sometimes a somatic won't appear until the unconsciousness in the incident has been released, or boiled off, as auditors call it. Once the pre-clear has released the unconsciousness, the somatic that was buried beneath it will turn on.
My side hurts. My shoulder.
It's sometimes the case that a pre-clear is unable to recall any somatics. This may mean that there's an engram command somewhere that's shutting off her ability to recall them.
What's the somatic?
There isn't one. It doesn't hurt.
Okay.
I'm lying there, and the medic and coach are checking out my knee.
If your pre-clear doesn't mention the somatic, ask for it. Try to get him to contact it.
What's the somatic?
Well, there's a little bit of a twinge in my knee.
Okay. Please continue.
An actual somatic in an incident will vary and undergo changes as the pre-clear runs it out.
Then the medic straightens my leg, and it hurts. Really, really bad. You know, it's really starting to throb.
I understand. Please continue.
And then the coach says, "What do you think?"
Just continue to run the pre-clear through the incident over and over until the somatic has vanished and he has brightened up.
Ain't gonna heal anytime soon, which is exactly what I kept saying. Wow. You know, the somatic is gone.
That's great.
When the engram is erased, the somatic will disappear, never to return. Engrams are the single and sole source of psychosomatic illness. Clear them away, and you not only eliminate your aberrations, but your potential for psychosomatic illnesses as well. For a full discussion on all the different ways engrams can negatively affect your body, read the chapter entitled Psychosomatic Illness. Why do some people seem to enjoy life and survive better than others? Why do they seem to attack life with more vigor and enthusiasm? What is this energy, this stuff of life, that makes you feel more alive, or when it's lacking, become more dead? Man is alive, so there must be a force or flow of something which keeps him alive. In fact, all living things are full of varying degrees of this life energy. In Dianetics, we call this life force. As you've seen, life force is like the gas that fills a hot air balloon. The more you have, the stronger your thrust to survive is, and the more energetic, active, and happier you are. The less you have, the less vibrant and alive you are, and the weaker your thrust to survive becomes. So what is it that determines how much or how little life force you have available to you? Engrams. Great loss and other severe survival suppressors dam up your life force.
The Secretary of the Army would like me to express with deep regret that your husband was killed in action this July 13th.
For example, the loss of someone you love can be such a shock that your analytical power is reduced and a painful emotion engram is received. Your life force gets dammed up at these points in life. You may have enormous quantities of that life force, but some of it becomes suppressed into these engrams. After that, you don't seem to have as much vitality as you had before. Your mind, then, has a great quantity of sorrow and despair trapped within it. The more life force you have bound up in your engrams, the less free your emotions are, and nothing in your future seems to bring you up to the level you were at before. That's why the glory and color of our childhood seems to vanish as we get older. But this beauty and sensitivity to life isn't gone. It's just trapped within us. Let's look at it this way. Let's say this man has 1,000 units of life force. At any given hour or day, he'd have just so many of these available to him. Consider this his potential dynamic thrust. If he were clear, he'd have all this life force available, and he'd be able to channel it into an exhilarating life. But let's see what happens to someone who's not clear.
We have been talking about this for months.
Maybe you could just
okay?
talk to me a little more, because I'm not understanding.
Let's say his wife decides to leave him.
I'm over it.
We're not done, Christine.
This loss traps some of his life force units.
Can't just give up on me like this, Christine.
Talk about, okay? Bye.
Now, he has many other engrams, and this engram will also key in earlier ones that are in some way similar to this one. When those engrams get keyed in, they'll capture even more life force, and he'll drop down the tone scale even further. Now, as he goes through life, that engram will get restimulated. And every time an engram gets restimulated, it captures even more of those life force units. When he later sees his wife with another man, that engram gets restimulated again, and even more life force becomes unavailable to him. The more restimulated he is, the less energetic he feels, and the weaker his dynamic thrust becomes. So someone with potentially 1,000 units of life force could have 950 of those units captured in his engram bank, and he'd be functioning in life with only about 50 of those units. His activities and thoughts would be scattered, and his problems would seem uncomputable. Now, certain circumstances can cause him to recapture some of those units. Necessity or enthusiasm for a project will recharge some of his life force and channel it toward that survival-oriented goal.
Access to the park, access...
But he can't capture back as much life force as he's lost into those engrams, and he'll spiral downward. Now, not only is that lost life force unavailable to him, it'll actually be used against him from within. You see, those captured life force units are what give engrams their force and power.
Let's think like a firm here, right? Let's think like we've been here for 10 years.
Engrams can use that force to dictate that you behave frantically, obsessively along a certain course, depending on the commands it contains. For example, we've all seen the driven man who relentlessly pursues his quest for more power and control. Such a person has an engram command that tells him he's the most powerful person in the world,
I want this precinct turned inside out.
or that he's the best at some activity,
Thank you very much. Hi, how are you?
or that he must conquer all.
I want to get every voter in this precinct. Every voter.
The engram demands that he achieve that goal and channels his captured life force toward the achievement of that command.
I am behind in the polls, and I want to know why.
Now, that command may in some way align with his true basic purpose, but because his life force is channeling straight through an engram, his behavior, no matter how enthusiastic it may seem, is actually very aberrated. He's hectically trying to conquer all.
List of those people that we talked about the other day.
So if this man has 1,000 units of life force, 500 of those units could be being channeled through that engram, giving him a pretty strong false dynamic thrust toward the engram's goal. And he can't possibly achieve this goal or enjoy his success, because the engram keeps demanding that he must conquer more. That's why the primary task of therapy is to free these captured life force units and throw them back into circulation, back under your own control. The best way to do that is to run out painful emotion engrams. Your tone level and survival potential will increase in direct ratio to the amount of energy that's freed from these engrams.
I forgot about that.
If this man were cleared of his engrams, he'd have all 1,000 of his life force units directed by his own determinism toward his true purpose. He'd not only be able to achieve his goals, he'd enjoy pursuing and attaining them. Whatever the shock or upset, painful emotion can be reduced from it. When a girl's dog has just been run over, the incident can be treated as a painful emotion engram and the life force released from it.
I see my dog there, lying there.
When the pre-clear's wife has just left him, treat that loss as a painful emotion engram and relieve it.
I can't stop her.
The pre-clear may have walled in the death of her husband or parent or child, but the whole engram is still there, crammed with captured units, ready to be run.
Close your eyes.
Run such a period of loss exactly the same as you would run an incident that contains physical pain. Put the pre-clear into reverie, and when you get to step 4 of the procedure, return the pre-clear to the incident.
Without force, when I say the word canceled. Do you understand?
Tell her to go to the moment she learned about her husband's death.
Let's go to the moment you learned about your husband's death.
Okay. I'm there.
Good. Begin at the beginning of the engram and recount it.
Someone's at the door. I go to the door. I open it and I see the chaplain standing there.
The engram starts at the first moment the pre-clear receives the news. That's when her analytical mind shut down.
It's bright outside.
The end of the engram is a moment, an hour, a day, or even a week later when it turned back on.
That's all.
I understand. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
I hear the doorbell. I go to the door, I open it. I see the chaplain, and I get a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Have her recount the incident until there's no charge left.
The Secretary of the Army would like me to express
He's saying
regret that your husband was killed.
Your husband was killed in action.
The tone scale is a very useful guide for this. If a painful emotion engram is reducing properly, your pre-clear will follow the tone scale upward from apathy toward cheerfulness in a rather smooth rise. For example, if the loss struck her into apathy, then as she recounts, she'll most likely progress through the incident a time or two before she comes up the tone scale to grief.
Okay. What do you feel?
Devastated. I feel like I've been punched in the stomach.
Then will come the tears and despair.
All right. What do you see?
I see my baby in his playpen. And I'm thinking, oh God, I'm thinking, he'll never know his daddy. He'll never know him.
If you run into a heavy emotional charge, simply let her weep while you keep her at the business of running the engram.
I understand. Please, continue.
The amount of emotion released is nothing to be alarmed about. Running a painful emotion engram will discharge a great deal of sorrow.
Or I knew what was gonna happen. I knew what he was gonna tell me.
Another 2 or 3 runs through it should bring her up to anger.
I don't deserve this. I didn't do anything wrong.
Then further recounting brings her tone up into boredom.
I hear the doorbell ring.
But don't mistake this for an even higher tone, even if she resists running it again. There's still more data to run out.
Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
More recounting should bring her up to tone 3 or 4, to cheerfulness and possibly laughter. Laughter is definitely the relief of painful emotion. Any engram which really releases can be expected to begin somewhere between tears and boredom and end with laughter.
That's great. We'll be ending the session shortly.
I'm okay.
Treating that loss like an engram, recounting it until it's no longer painful emotionally, gives back the vitality that's been missing since the incident took place. Every emotional discharge from the engram bank will weaken it, reinforcing your ability to carry on in life with more vigor and enthusiasm. It'll also aid your analytical mind's ability to find more engrams. With the full quantity of your life force restored, you can rise to new heights of vitality. Pursue your greatest dreams freed from your deepest losses, and live once more with a restored appreciation of the beauty in the world. For more information about the effects of engrams on your life force, see the chapter entitled Emotion and the Life Force. You've heard it said that time is supposed to be the great healer. So you might think some incident that happened 20 or 30 years ago should no longer have any effect on you. Well, unfortunately, to your reactive mind, long ago
See? You're always against me. Everybody's always against me.
is the same as now.
I have to say, I can't believe
An engram has power to the degree that it's being re-stimulated, regardless of when you received it.
I have my own life, Mom.
See? You're always against me. Everybody's always against me.
Oh, quit it, Mom. Just quit it.
Dare talk to me like that.
And most engrams are received in the earliest stages of your life.
Is there an earlier incident like this?
The engram is not a memory. It's a recording impressed deep into the very structure of the body itself.
Yes. When I fell out of a swing.
Good. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
Well, I'm at the park, and my brother's calling me towards the swing. And I get on the swing, and my brother starts pushing me. And he's pushing me. And he pushes too hard. And I fall off the swing, and my arm.
It's theorized that the cells themselves could be recording the pain. After all, they're the things that are injured.
Okay. What's the somatic?
I'm feeling a dull pain right here in my arm where I broke it.
In fact, the word engram is a medical term meaning a lasting trace on a cell.
All right. What do you hear?
I hear me crying. And my brother.
Quit it!
And a leaf blower.
So theoretically, wherever you have cells, you could have recorded engrams. And you've had cells long before you were born. As an unborn child, you're very easily hurt. You're not protected by fully formed bones, and there's no room to move. So when something strikes or presses against you, your cells and organs are injured. Morning sickness, coughing, high blood pressure, even the simple act of mama tying her shoelaces in the later stages of her pregnancy may be severely damaging to your fragile body. And not only can you perceive light and dark, cold and heat, but you're also capable of experiencing emotion and pain. And when you're experiencing pain, everything being perceived is recorded as an engram. So the things said and done around a pregnant woman have a considerable effect on an unborn child. Like any engram, everything that's perceived during this prenatal engram is being recorded, including all the jostling and mama's high blood pressure, as well as the noises of the plane and everything being said.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some turbulence. Please fasten your seatbelts. Thank you.
The engram includes the painful pressure of the seatbelt, the cries from a baby nearby, and mama's emotion of fear.
I hate flying.
Don't worry, baby. It'll be over in a minute.
An unborn child has no idea what's being said in terms of words. The recording is just a series of impressions on his cells.
I hate flying.
Don't worry, baby. It'll be over in a minute.
Later in this child's life, this engram will become restimulated whenever he experiences similar sounds and comments and so on.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In preparation for takeoff, please ensure that all your carry-on items are stowed. Thank you, and please fasten your seatbelts.
And when the recording plays back, the words will most certainly have meaning to him, and he'll react as the engram dictates.
Hey man, you okay? Oh man, I think I'm having a panic attack. Do you need anything? No, I'm fine. I hate flying. I just gotta wait it out. It'll be over in a minute.
Prenatal engrams are far more serious than engrams occurring after you're born, mainly because every one of them contains your mother. Her voice, the things she says, and the things she does when she's pregnant will have an enormous effect upon your later life.
She's always flirting with you.
Ah, quit it. Just quit it. She's just being friendly.
You're a liar.
I am not. Be serious. You got her all wrong.
See? You're always against me. Everybody's always against me.
Now this mother and her unborn daughter have identical engrams, and throughout their lives, they'll constantly re-stimulate that engram in each other.
You're a liar! I am not!
Oh, quit it! Just quit it!
And whenever re-stimulated, they'll dramatize using the same engramic language over and over again.
I told you to clean your room 3 times. Now I have to do it?
Mom, be serious. I had to help Dad.
You're a liar.
I am not. Dad said I could do it later.
Oh, Dad said. You're always against me. Everybody's always against me. Ugh!
Further, this child has the unhappy situation of having all of her prenatal engrams continually re-stimulated by her mom. This is one of the main causes of family difficulties.
Oh, Mom, drop me off at Lizzie's house, okay?
No, I want you home tonight.
Mom, I promised. We have a homework assignment. Why do you hate me?
Quit it. Just quit it.
You're always against me. Everybody's always against me.
Rachel!
Everyone has prenatal engrams. You probably have scores and scores of them, and each one is aberrative.
And there's kids leaning over me. You know, there's just nothing new. Can't we just quit it for today?
But Dianetics can locate any engram that the cells have hidden.
Is there an earlier incident like this?
And pre-clears often find themselves in the prenatal area of their time track.
It's dark. I just hear a noise. Like a vacuum cleaner.
That's fine. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
And the importance of running prenatal engrams cannot be underestimated. As you know, an engram won't release if there is an earlier similar engram on its chain. And since chains can consist of similar words or similar voices or sounds, you can see why many chains would lead back into the prenatal area. If you think of the reactive mind as an upside-down pyramid, the upper part would consist of the most recent incidents on the time track, and the lower portion would contain the earliest ones. Those are the primary cause of aberration. To remove the entire content of the reactive mind, you have to keep trying to contact the earliest engrams possible and reduce them, all the while trying to find basic, the very first engram on the time track. And once basic is erased, the remaining engrams will be much easier to locate and erase. So the auditor is always seeking the earliest engrams that can be reached.
Please continue.
I feel these stabs of pain. And he's saying, just quit it!
And don't be surprised if your pre-clear curls up in a ball.
She's saying you're a liar!
You can be sure she was curled up in a ball when she received the engram.
Against me! You're always against me!
Releasing these engrams restores the pre-clear's rationality. and gives him a stability and well-being far greater than he may have thought possible.
Now I totally understand why I always thought people...
But there are also some simple steps that can be taken in order to lessen the aberrative power of these engrams in the first place. Be absolutely quiet around a pregnant woman who's experiencing any kind of pain or illness. Make sure everyone around her understands that any remark they make threatens the sanity of both her and her child. And ask everyone present during the birth to maintain silence as much as possible. By preventing and deleting the devastating effects of prenatal engrams, you can do a great deal to save the health and sanity of both mother and child, ensuring they'll enjoy a long, happy relationship together. While prenatal engrams are discussed throughout Dianetics, there's a chapter entitled Prenatal Experience and Birth that's devoted to the subject. Man has known for quite some time that diseases are contagious. Germs traveling from one person to the next can spread through an entire society before they're stopped by medicines. But it wasn't until Dianetics that man understood that aberration can be spread in much the same way. Aberrations are contagious. Like germs, they carry forward from person to person, from parent to child, through entire societies until they're stopped by auditing. How exactly does this occur? Aberrations come from the contents of engrams, and that content is contagious. Let's say you receive a painful injury. It's an engram. Now, if someone around you dramatizes their engrams while you're recording yours, the content of their reactive mind is passed on to you.
What the hell was that? That was pathetic! You're not good enough for varsity! You hear me? You're not good enough! You're not good enough and you never will be!
You've just received an engramic command that says you're not good enough and never will be. Now, people under stress dramatize their engrams. So let's say one day, years later, when you're stressed, you dramatize your engram in front of your sick daughter.
I can't do it. I'm gonna tell him no, I'm not gonna take the promotion.
What are you talking about? This is what you've been working for. Steve, come on, the money's great, the hours are fantastic.
No! I'm not good enough, Carol, okay? I'm not good enough, and I never will be.
Since your daughter is experiencing pain and some degree of unconsciousness from her illness, she's recorded everything she's overheard into her reactive mind, including the command that she's not good enough and never will be.
All you've been talking about all semester is trying out for the squad. You'll kick yourself all year if you don't try out.
I can't do it, okay? I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough, and I never will be.
One man, dramatizing his engrams, passes his aberrations on to another.
You're not good enough, and you never will be!
Who in turn passes it on to his daughter.
I'm not good enough, and I never will be.
When parents dramatize their engrams around their sick or injured children, they will pass those engrams along just as certainly as if they were bacteria.
I'm not good enough, and I never will be.
As a matter of fact, their dramatizations may be the cause of the child's pain and unconsciousness. Then the act of injuring another becomes part of the content of the child's reactive mind.
Don't you ever talk to me like that! That's what you get for sassing your father! That's what you get!
Sorry.
This child received an engram because his father was dramatizing. One person's engrams led to another's pain and unconsciousness. One person's aberration led to another person's aberration. When that child grows up, he'll dramatize his engram exactly the same way.
Don't you ever talk to me like that! That's what you get for sassing your father! That's what you get!
And in the future, this boy may dramatize this engram by hitting his child. And that child too will become aberrated. In this way, generations of a family will carry forward the same aberrations.
It doesn't hurt. Quit being a baby.
This isn't the only way aberration gets around. People at the scene of accidents can get restimulated by the emergency and start dramatizing their engrams. If a person is unconscious because of the accident, they get an engram, and that engram contains the other person's dramatization. Similarly, people on operating tables under anesthetic are subjected to the aberrated comments of those present.
I have the worst luck with women, I really do.
Their conversations enter into the unconscious person as an engram.
I always mess it up.
In fact, one of the most remarkable engrams in terms of contagion is birth. Birth is a trying experience for both mother and child. It's exhausting, emotionally stressful, and physically painful to both of them. So they each receive the same engram with almost identical contents. Mom's pain is different than the baby's.
Oh my God, it hurts so much.
There's the head.
He gets a headache from the extreme pressure on his head. But both record the same emotions, the same sounds, and the same comments made by everyone present during and right after the birth.
Oh, you're an angry little one, aren't you?
Mama and baby now have the same birth engram. This mutual engram is remarkably destructive in many ways. The mother's voice can re-stimulate the birth engram in the child. And the child's crying can re-stimulate the giving birth engram in the mother. She may experience extreme exhaustion, feelings of stress, and even a re-stimulation of the anesthetic from the birth. This mutual re-stimulation will unfortunately continue throughout their lives, and anything that was said during birth,
you're an angry little one, aren't you?
Even years later, will take on its full reactive, literal meaning to both the mother.
Oh my God! I told you to take the sweet potatoes out of the oven before you carved the turkey.
And the grown child.
Honey, I forgot. I'm sorry.
This was, after all, the woman who was screaming during his birth.
They're ruined.
One of the most engramic moments of his life.
I just got a killer headache.
I swear every time we come to your mother's house, you get a headache.
Can you blame me?
Even years later, she's quite capable of re-stimulating that engram and its contents, including the headache and the doctor's comment that he's angry.
You're an angry little one, aren't you?
And he will, of course, try to justify his irrational behavior.
Dad, she just gets me so angry.
The contagious nature of aberration is another way in which the reactive mind undermines not only your survival, but the survival of future generations.
That's what you get for sassing your father.
Eliminating those engrams and freeing you from your aberrations not only helps you live a better, happier life, but it improves the lives of all of those around you. Your loved ones, your parents, your children, and through them, the world at large. More about how the contents of engrams can spread from person to person and generation to generation can be found in the chapter entitled Contagion of Aberration. In any area of life, experience and knowledge lead you to take precautions to prevent injury or illness. Once you're aware of all the potential dangers in a situation, you can prepare and safeguard against them. Likewise, once you know the cause of aberrations and psychosomatic illnesses, you can do a great deal toward preventing them. And in fact, you should.
Me go first? Why don't you go first?
Don't be such a chicken. Besides, you can't launch it down there. Now get in.
The engram is actually a simple thing.
We have launch sequence in 3, 2, 1, blast off!
It's a moment when your analytical mind is shut down by physical pain, drugs, or other means. And your reactive mind is recording. The most damaging aspects of that recording are the words and phrases spoken to you and around you.
Should have been me. I should have went first. Davey, open your eyes and I'll be your best friend forever and ever.
Their aberrative power cannot be underestimated. Engrammic commands aren't just capable of changing your thoughts or behavior for the worse, or physically disabling you. Their impact is so powerful, they can literally mean the difference between life
Come on, Peter.
and death.
He's not gonna make it.
But something can be done to safeguard not only your sanity, but the sanity of your friends and family members. There's a branch of Dianetics devoted solely to the prevention of aberration. This is known as preventive Dianetics. There are two phases of prevention. The first is to do what's necessary to stop the verbal content from entering a reactive mind. In other words, by simply being quiet around an unconscious person, you can prevent him from receiving those engrammic commands. If you speak in such situations, no matter what you say, you're literally threatening that person's health and sanity.
Hurry! Spencer, don't touch him! Don't touch him! What happened? Don't touch him!
For example, some people tend to become frantic and vocal around an injured child.
Look at me, Mommy!
But this only ensures that his engram will be very aberrative to him. The best way to behave is to appear calm and say nothing. Do what needs to be done to tend to him, but do it in silence. The same applies for a child who's sick. Don't drool sympathy over a sick person.
Poor little boy, it's all right.
Engrams containing sympathy are the most aberrative engrams you could have,
Nanny's here. I'm not going to leave you alone while you're sick.
because they insist that the way to survive is to be pathetic and sick.
Good boy.
So say nothing around a sick child. You can express your love and affection. Just do it without speaking. Simply maintain silence around anyone who's sick or injured. In fact, medical professionals should say as little as possible around anyone undergoing any painful procedure. And every word spoken during childbirth is faithfully recorded into the reactive mind of not only the mother, but the newborn child as well. So be sure to maintain silence during birth and immediately afterward. These simple precautions can go a long way toward keeping you and your friends and family sane. The second phase of prevention is to attempt to keep existing engrams from becoming keyed in. Parents should realize they're the most powerful re-stimulators a child has, since it's certain that when dramatizing, they've passed their aberrations on to their children.
Everybody's always against me. You're always against me. Everybody's always against me. Ugh.
So be aware that quarrels within hearing of your children can key in their engrams. You probably dramatize using the same phrases that are contained in their reactive minds. And avoid drooling sympathy when your child is sick or injured. This can activate sleeping engrams, potentially making your child physically ill and mentally aberrated. In short, providing your family with a calm and harmonious atmosphere at home will go a long way towards safeguarding their sanity. But the primary way to prevent aberration has to do with how we treat the most important person in a child's life, his mother. There's a reason moms play such an enormous role in the life of any human being. They're present in every prenatal engram you have.
You know the rules. Calm down, all right?
A child in the womb is fragile and very easily injured. When he becomes unconscious, he receives all the perceptions and words and even emotions in the area of the mother as engrams.
Ridiculous. I called you. I told you.
Therefore, Mama's voice,
So good to see you guys.
the things she says, and the things she does have an enormous effect upon her unborn child. And anyone who's emotional or dramatizing around an injured pregnant woman is communicating their comments and emotions straight into her child.
I'm starving. I'm starving. You better cook it right or it's your face on that grill.
Phil, I think you've had enough, okay?
Mike, stop it! No!
Relax.
Back off, man.
No,
Relax.
stop it!
Get out of here now!
A blow such as this can do a lot of damage to the child, but his repair facilities are heightened and he will recover physically. Nonetheless, he's received an engram containing the pain of the blow, the emotions of his mother and the others around her,
Get out of here now!
and everything that is being said.
Get out!
This recording can now be keyed in and played back in the future, when the child will understand the meanings of those comments. Prenatal engrams are far more serious than engrams that occur after you're born. So preventing them from having any content is a primary concern. The mother, then, should be extremely gentle on herself during pregnancy. Even the most minor injuries can be recorded as engrams by her child's reactive mind, so it's very important to maintain silence during such moments. Those around a pregnant woman should be informed of the need for complete and utter silence after any jar or injury. Any remark they make will be aberrative for both her and her child. And in view of the fact that it's not always possible to tell when a woman is pregnant, say nothing around any woman who's been struck or jarred in any way.
I'm okay, thanks.
Help her, but help her in silence. Women have a right and a reason to demand good treatment and respect.
Let me help you with that.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, no.
Be careful.
They're entrusted with the sanity of our future generations. We should all be more considerate of their health and well-being. Of course, the final answer to the problem of eliminating aberrations and psychosomatic ills is to undergo processing to clear them away. Cleared parents provide a safe, sane environment free of dramatizations. And it's a known fact that the healthiest children come from the happiest mothers. In the meantime, by observing the simple precautions covered here, you can go a long way toward ensuring not only your own well-being, but the sanity and health and happiness of all those around you. You'll find an entire chapter devoted to this subject of preventing aberration in Dianetics. How do you diagnose aberration? Some have tried, only to end up with a long list of disorders and syndromes, and no actual cure. Trying to label all the different ways we behave irrationally is not only impossible, it's completely unnecessary.
Please don't throw my guitar! God! It's over! Over! O-V-E-R! You're... Ah!
Aberration is caused by engrams. So the number of possible aberrations is the number of possible combinations of words contained in those engrams.
This argument is over!
You don't get it. It's not what you think.
It's over! Over! O-V-E-R!
An auditor knows that the cause of aberration is simply the content of an engram, whatever it may be. But whatever an engram contains, if it troubles the pre-clear in life, it can trouble the auditor in session.
No. This session is done. It's over. Over! O-V-E-R!
Here's why.
Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
When an engram is received, your analytical mind is shut down to some degree by the pain.
Tough guy, why don't you come take
And since it's shut down, you don't know that the engram's data is coming in, so you're not consciously aware that the data exists.
to my stomach.
Whenever that engram gets restimulated, your analytical power is reduced and you dramatize its contents.
Full house, baby, you're going home. Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
And if you dramatize an engram once, you'll dramatize it many times,
Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
saying and doing to others exactly what was said and done to you.
Just shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
And you don't know the real reason why you're saying what you're saying, or why you're acting the way you're acting. The same thing happens when an engram is contacted with auditing. The pre-clear's analytical power is reduced, and he'll think and speak straight out of the engram he's in.
I'm done. I understand. No. Shut the hell up. I don't want to hear another word out of you.
I understand what you're saying, but there may be more in it. The best thing is to get through this. Go back to the beginning and go over it.
This is the rule in diagnosis. Whatever negative reaction the preclear has to auditing is coming right out of the engrams themselves.
Shut the hell up. Dead. I don't want to hear.
So if a preclear criticizes Dianetics,
This is useless. You're wasting my time.
or attacks the auditor,
You know, you're wrong. You have no idea what you're doing.
or in any way appears to resist therapy,
This session is done. It's over. Over. O-V-E-R!
keep in mind that those are engrams talking,
I understand,
and calmly proceed.
but the only way out of it is through it. Please continue.
So my parents are fighting, and my mom says,
An auditor has to be able to compute the trouble the preclear is having so he can remedy it. There are additional techniques he can use, and these are covered in the book and illustrated in other films. But to use them, he has to be able to think like an engram. The reactive mind interprets every command literally, so the auditor has to evaluate everything the preclear says literally. In other words, if the preclear is doubtful or skeptical about Dianetics,
I don't know.
He's got an engram about being doubtful.
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not doing this right.
Listen to what the preclear is saying and observe his reactions. This will tell you what sort of commands are contained in the engram.
You know what? I'm finished with this engram. We're moving on.
I understand, but there may be more in it. Go back to the beginning.
If the preclear insists on being in control, refusing to do what the auditor tells him to do, he has an engram telling him to be in control.
Stop telling me what to do. I'm not going to run this one anymore.
I understand, but we need to get through this.
Every preclear has one or more computations which will inhibit the delivery of engrams. So an auditor's main concern in diagnosing aberration is how it affects the mechanical operation of the preclear's mind in session.
I am driving down a windy road.
For example, the preclear's ability to recall an engram is obviously very important. Yet some engram commands can shut off some of the senses, making recall difficult.
I don't know what she's saying. I can't hear.
If a preclear can't hear sounds or voices in past incidents, the auditor knows she has an engram command which is literally telling her she can't hear.
What do you see?
Nothing. I can feel rough gravel on my face. I can smell dirt.
If he can't see scenes of past experiences in color and in motion, he has an engram about not being able to see. If the preclear shows no emotions or can't feel the somatic in an incident, she may have a command that tells her she can't feel.
What's the somatic? I can't feel anything. All right. What do you hear?
Since the word feeling can refer to both pain and emotion, the command, I can't feel anything, may shut off both. Engrams which have shut down some of the primary working mechanisms of the mind can slow down therapy.
I don't know what she's saying.
Can't feel my ankle.
Nothing.
But eventually, the engrams causing such problems will be gone.
Dad, I can't feel anything.
Therefore, the auditor has but one choice: to persevere.
I understand, but the only way out of it...
In a sense, you could say the engrams are fighting back. It's the auditor's job to not let them win, but to join forces with his preclear to free him from the burdens of his past and give him a bright new future. For more information about the subjects discussed in this film, see the chapter entitled Diagnosis. The number of ways you can receive an engram are almost infinite. But all engrams fall into just three basic types. Let's take a look at each one of them and see the different ways in which they aberrate you. The first type of engram is called a contra-survival engram. Contra means against or opposing. So a contra-survival engram is an incident containing physical pain and data that threatens or seems to threaten your survival.
Man, you're a loser!
The contents of these engrams cause aberrations that act as blocks to your dynamics and your basic purposes.
That was pathetic! You're not good enough and you never will be!
Imagine going through life feeling that regardless of what you do and how hard you try, you'll never be good enough.
I can't do it. I can't. I'm gonna tell him no. I'm not gonna take the promotion.
What are you talking about? This is what you've been working for.
No!
Why?
I'm not good enough, Carol, okay? I'm not good enough and I never will be.
The contra-survival engram acts like a suppressor to you. But you're being suppressed by something from within yourself, and you have no idea it's there. The second type of engram is called a pro-survival engram. Pro means in favor or supporting of. Now, no engram actually aids your survival in any way. But the data in a pro-survival engram seems to help you survive.
You can't relax. You gotta push yourself. You gotta push, 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 and never let up for a second.
Because the commands in such an engram seem to be aligned with your basic purpose to survive, a pro-survival engram acts as though it's part of your dynamic thrust. But it's an aberrated part that actually harms your survival. These engrams waste your life force by forcing you to obey irrational commands that your reactive mind thinks are necessary for your survival.
I got it!
A pro-survival engram causes behavior that's very aberrated.
Dave, relax, man. For God's sakes, it's supposed to be a friendly game.
And you have no control over it. Now, there is a specific kind of pro-survival engram called a sympathy engram that's the most aberrative engram you could have. A sympathy engram contains someone you think has rescued you or defended you when you were in danger.
She can't breathe!
That person offers you sympathy and protection when you're sick, injured, or in any way experiencing physical pain.
My poor baby. It's okay. Daddy's here. You're safe now.
And because they helped you survive, your reactive mind now thinks you need that person to continue surviving. In Dianetics, we call such a person an ally. The nanny who sympathetically fussed over you when you were hurt. The aunt who begged your pregnant mother not to abort you.
Jackie, do not get rid of it. If you can't take care of it, I certainly will.
Or the parent who saved you from a beating.
I tell you to do something, you had better...
What do you think you're doing?
To your reactive mind, these are your allies.
It's all right, baby. Mama will never let him hurt you ever again, okay?
And you can't survive without them. Let's take a look at a sympathy pro-survival engram in detail, so you can see how devastating these engrams can be.
You're still sick?
Take a common childhood engram in which you're extremely ill.
Cover your mouth and you cough.
Now, your mother is typically not very kind to you.
No, just play with your truck.
Oh, Mother, finally you're here.
My poor little boy.
So your grandmother comes to your rescue to take care of you.
It's okay, Grandma's here.
While you're feverish, she gives you a lot of sympathy and promises she'll stay with you as long as you're sick.
I'll stay right here with you as long as you're sick.
Your reactive mind now considers Grandma an ally. Her purpose to keep you alive aligns with your basic purpose to survive. So Grandma is now identified with survival. So now you need Grandma to survive.
How would you like a yummy peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Does that sound good?
And since Grandma equals survival, everything she says and does, especially in this engram, is right and also equals survival.
Don't worry, darling, because Grandma loves you.
What's worse, anyone in the future who somehow reminds you of Grandma will also equal survival.
Well, of course, if she has that.
The reactive mind is pretty stupid that way. So when you grow up, you marry a woman who has the same accent or mannerisms as your grandmother. without knowing why.
Darling, please. I am on the phone.
Your reactive mind can't tell the difference between your wife and your grandmother.
Don't worry, darling.
So it thinks your wife is your ally. And allies are sympathetic and take care of you. That's how you survive. But your wife is not your grandmother. And she's not a sympathetic person.
What?
Nothing. I just want to be with my sweet wife.
Well, we're talking, so why don't you go talk to the guys? Anyway.
Now, you need her sympathy to survive. What did you do to get Grandma's sympathy? You were sick. And what did Grandma say in that engram?
I'll stay right here with you as long as you're sick.
So this is your reactive mind's computation. Grandma was nice to me and took care of me when I was sick. I need my wife to be nice to me. Therefore, I must be sick. This is called an ally computation. An ally computation says that you can only be safe around certain people, and you can only be around those people if you're sick or crazy or poor or generally disabled. So your reactive mind turns on the same somatics that were recorded in that engram, and you become psychosomatically sick.
Honey, can you feel my forehead? I think I'm coming down with something.
It's hot outside. You're probably just hot. Now, look, go get something to drink. Did I miss anything?
But your wife doesn't respond like a sympathetic ally. So the computation gets stronger, and your psychosomatic illness gets stronger, all in an effort to make her be your ally. This is the basic pattern of all sympathy engrams.
Bye, honey. Bye-bye.
Sweetie, I really don't feel good. Let's go home. We can rent a movie and snuggle.
No. I want to stay here. I'm having a good time.
The engram insists that you have to be sick in order to survive. And because your wife's voice constantly reminds your reactive mind of Grandma, that engram is constantly re-stimulated. So you get sick over and over again.
Aren't you getting up? You're gonna be late for work again.
Oh, I'm not going into work today. I'm sick.
Again? You're always sick. What is it with you?
I don't know. Honey, will you make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
For breakfast? No. Get up and go to work. You're acting like a big baby.
This is how a psychosomatic illness becomes chronic. Chronic means it's either long-lasting or it happens continually. Any chronic psychosomatic illness can be traced back to one of these sympathy pro-survival engrams. Let's return to the little girl who fell in a pool.
She can't breathe.
Her dad came to her rescue and gave her sympathy, so he's her ally. The engram also contains the comments,
Daddy's here. You're safe now.
Her ally computation is Daddy equals survival equals you're safe now equals she can't breathe. So when this girl grows up, she has a chronic psychosomatic illness called asthma. The engram is telling her that when she can't breathe, she'll get sympathy and feel safe. And that's the way to survive.
Go back to the beginning and go over it again.
Now, the reactive mind is so certain that these ally computations are necessary to the survival of the preclear that it will not let them go.
I can't really feel it. I just feel like...
Therefore, these engrams will be the hardest ones to reach and the ones that cause the most resistance to therapy. And yet these are the engrams you need to find and handle as soon as possible. But there is a way to locate them, as you'll see in a moment. And that brings us to the third type of engram, the painful emotion engram. These are caused by the shock of great loss or the threat of loss, such as the death or departure of a loved one. The shock reduces your analytical power and an engram is received.
It's too late. She didn't make it. Your grandma's gone. So sorry.
And while any loss is painful, if it is the loss of an ally, it will seem to you as if you yourself have suffered some portion of death. That's because your reactive mind has so identified you with your ally that whatever happens to your ally is considered to be happening to you. And as you've seen, this emotion of loss locks up your life force. So when an ally dies, departs, or turns against you, so much life force gets trapped in that engram that you simply don't feel as alive as you did before. Now, for a pre-clear to improve, as much life force as possible must be restored to him as quickly as possible. This weakens his reactive mind and raises his emotional tone level.
Let's go to the moment you learned about your grandmother's death.
Okay, I'm there.
Good. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
Well, I pull up to the house and I'm panicking. There's an ambulance in the driveway. And I rush over to my dad. He comes out the front door.
So running out the painful emotion from the death or departure of an ally will restore much life force back into the pre-clear, since these are the engrams which contain the greatest discharge.
My dad says it's too late.
She didn't make it.
She didn't make it.
Your grandma's gone.
Your grandma's gone.
Now, if the incident doesn't ease after several recountings, slide back down its sorrow track, just as you would with any other engram, and find earlier and earlier incidents on the chain.
That's it. I don't have anything new.
Okay, that's fine. Is there an earlier incident like this?
And here we have the way in which you find those hidden ally computations. The reactive mind hides those engrams well, since they're so identified with your deepest purpose to survive.
Yeah.
Good. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
I'm 7. I'm sick. I'm really, really sick.
But running out the loss of an ally can lead you back down through that ally's chain of incidents to the earliest engram on the chain.
And she says Grandma's here.
The moment when the ally first became an ally.
I'll stay right here with you as long as you're sick.
Reducing that sympathy engram will restore a great deal of life force back to the pre-clear and release him from all the aberration and chronic psychosomatic illnesses that engram has created. Ally computations are the first engrams an auditor should try to get if he can. And he can find them by running out the sorrow caused by the death or departure of an ally.
I feel like I've released everything.
These are the different types of engrams. Once you're freed from these destructive incidents, you can live your life the way you choose, with sanity, good health, vitality, and an enthusiasm for all that life has to offer. You'll find much more information about these types of engrams throughout the book. The chapter, Some Types of Engrams, gives 2 detailed examples of each to help you clearly understand their differences. There may be an incident in your life that you know you want to take up in auditing. A recent accident, perhaps, or the death of someone you loved. For example, this girl never fully recovered from the loss of her mother.
So, did you get enough to eat?
Yeah.
When it comes to engrams, time does not heal.
You got enough sleep?
Yeah, plenty.
For all the emotional pain she felt when it happened is still bound up within the engram.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Think of that emotion as captured life force and follow the basic procedure to free it. When it gets released, it will come with a rush of emotion.
Close your eyes.
A pre-clear's recovery depends a great deal on how much of their life force is released from these painful emotion
I said
engrams.
to you while you were in a therapy session.
Run losses exactly the same as you would run an incident that contains physical pain.
Made to you will be without force when I say the word canceled. Do you understand?
Yes.
When you get to step 4 of the procedure, return the pre-clear to the incident. Tell her to go to the moment she first heard the news of the loss. That's the shock that shut down her analytical mind. So that's when the engram begins.
Let's go to the moment you learned about your mother's death.
Okay.
Now go on to the 5th step and tell the pre-clear to begin at the beginning and recount it.
Begin at the beginning and recount it.
It was about 2.5 years ago, and she had been sick for a while and she needed surgery. And I was at the hospital when the doctor told us.
Notice that she's talking about it as though it happened in the past, rather than re-experiencing it in the present.
We really weren't expecting anything out of the ordinary. It's just...
She has not returned to the incident. She's just remembering it. If she's not returned, the engram won't lift. If this happens, don't criticize her. Just ask questions to get her to describe the surroundings of the incident.
Okay. What do you see?
I see the hospital waiting room.
All right. What do you see there?
I see my dad. And he looks really worried. And I see the coffee cup I'm holding in my hand. And the clock on the wall. And I just keep wondering what's taking so long. And I see the doctor coming down the hall to talk to us.
Make sure you get the moment that she first heard the news.
Okay. What does he say?
He says,
Mr. Peterson, I'm very sorry to have to tell you this.
I'm very sorry to tell you this.
She didn't make it.
But she didn't make it.
I'm so sorry. We did everything we could.
And then my dad. My dad is just... He's just saying no, no, no over and over again.
Run the engram far enough into it to make sure that you have the initial shock. A few minutes of engram time will do, and then have her recount it again.
I understand. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
I'm in the hospital waiting room with my dad. And the doctor says,
She didn't make it.
I'm very sorry to tell you this, but she didn't make it.
Make sure the pre-clear goes over it enough times to take all the emotional charge out of it.
And I'm crying on my dad's shoulder.
The amount of emotion the pre-clear may release is nothing to be alarmed about.
I can't.
Simply let her cry while you keep her running the engram. Use a soft, sympathetic voice.
I understand. Please continue.
He says...
The engram should be recounted until the emotion in it is gone.
Very sorry to tell you. He says, very sorry to tell you this, but...
If the incident doesn't unburden after recounting it over and over, go to step 6B and find an earlier similar incident and reduce that.
I'm just...
Recounting a loss until it's no longer emotionally painful will give her back the vitality and life force she hasn't had since before the incident took place. In fact, releasing this life force will give the pre-clear some of her single largest gains.
I feel her presence with me everywhere I go. It's just this amazing...
There's another important use of Dianetic auditing. The auditor can take someone who's been injured and run the injury as an engram. This is called a Dianetic assist because the person receiving this auditing will recover much more rapidly. Any recent illness or injury can be run to promote a faster recovery. Working as soon after the injury as possible, put the pre-clear into reverie and install the canceller.
Any suggestion I have made will be without force when I say the word canceled.
When you get to step 4, return the pre-clear to the moment they were injured, the first moment of impact.
Let's go to the moment you got hit by the car.
Okay.
Good.
Run the incident the same as you would any engram, working with the file clerk to get data.
Begin at the beginning of the incident and recount it.
I'm jogging, and I go to cross the street, and I hear the screech of tires, and a car comes out of nowhere.
Good. Continue.
The next thing I see is people who are leaning over me.
Okay. What are they saying?
I'm not sure. That's all.
That's fine. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
I'm jogging and I go to cross the street and I I hear the screech of tires and a car comes out of nowhere.
Notice that the pre-clear is just repeating what she remembers saying the last time, instead of re-experiencing the engram freshly to discover more data. This is called replay, and it means the pre-clear is not running the engram. Quietly ask questions to get her to keep her attention on the scene.
Okay. What do you hear?
I hear people talking. The woman who hit me, she's hysterical.
Emergency! Hello? Hello, I hit somebody! I hit somebody with my car!
Good. What does she say?
I didn't see her! Oh my god, I didn't see her! Oh, she just came out of nowhere!
She's saying, "Oh my god, I didn't see her. She came out of nowhere."
A pre-clear will sometimes yawn or even get groggy. This means that the unconsciousness that was recorded in the engram is releasing, and it's important to let this happen without any interruption. This is the unconsciousness that made her feel dull or stupid whenever the engram was restimulated. The more this unconsciousness is released, the more alert she'll be in life.
Someone's saying, "Are you okay?" And the woman says, "I hit somebody. I hit somebody with my car." My arm's starting to ache a little.
All right. Continue.
The headphones are lying next to me in the street, and I can hear the music playing through them, and the sprinklers. I hear the sprinklers.
Notice that she's uncovering new details that were recorded when she was unconscious. When all these hidden perceptions become known to her, the engram will no longer have any effect.
I open my eyes,
Are you okay?
and I see all these people leaning over me. I hear a dog barking.
You need to stay still.
I think I say, "What happened?"
Continue to run the pre-clear through the incident as many times as it takes to bring her to the point where she's cheerful about it. Once the engram is reduced, the injured area is no longer inhibited from healing, and her general tone level will be improved. Dianetic assists can be very beneficial to anyone who's received a recent injury or illness. Use them to help all those you know recover more rapidly from these engramic events. You'll find more information about auditing Dianetic assists in Chapter 9, Part 2 of the Therapy section, under the heading Dianetic First Aid. And to learn much more about auditing painful emotion engrams, read Emotion and the Life Force. You've seen how the words and phrases contained in an engram act as commands when restimulated in life, affecting your thoughts, your health, and even your emotions.
It's over! Over! O-V-E-R!
And you've seen how these commands also impinge themselves on you when contacted in auditing.
It's over! Over! O-V-E-R!
But there are certain types of commands that can also have a negative effect on your ability to contact and reduce engrams in session. A pre-clear locates his engrams by traveling on his time track. Everyone has a time track. This is the consecutive record of every moment of your life, accumulated throughout your existence. It's exactly dated.
Alright, I'm 15. In fact, it's my 15th birthday. I'm standing outside the Quick Mart,
Now, a primary concern of the auditor is to keep the pre-clear moving on the time track, contacting incidents so they can be recounted until they're reduced or erased. But various things can happen to the pre-clear with relation to the time track. Certain words and phrases contained in engrams can actually make it appear as though there are flaws in his time track.
I don't know. That's all there is. That's fine. We've done enough for the day anyway, right?
All right. Let's go through it again. Go back to the beginning and go over it. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Okay.
All right.
In fact, there are no flaws in the time track. It just seems that way, because certain engrammic phrases, called action phrases, send the pre-clear in various directions on the track without his permission. There are 5 different classes of these action phrases, each causing a different action on the track.
Where the hell have you been?
Hey, Dad.
You've been drinking again, haven't you?
No, Dad, I swear.
Don't lie to me! Get out!
I can't even see what happens next.
Okay. I understand.
The phrase, get out, is an action phrase because it commands the pre-clear to do something. And what he does depends on what that phrase means literally. In other words, when this man contacts this incident in a session, the action phrase, get out, will literally command him to get out of the engram. This phrase is classified as a bouncer because it bounces the pre-clear out of the engram and back up the time track toward or into present time. These common expressions are actually examples of bouncers. Listen to their literal meaning.
Run! Run away! Get up! Get up! Get up!
Don't ever come back.
Bouncers such as these will literally eject the pre-clear right out of the engram.
I don't know.
There can be other troubles caused by these action phrases. One of the most common is for the pre-clear to become stuck in an incident in the past.
He's standing over me yelling,
Stay here, okay? Just stay here, okay?
This sort of action phrase is called a holder because it literally holds him in an engram at that earlier point on the track. He's not in present time, but is locked in this earlier period of his life.
this cop runs over.
Holder phrases such as,
Hold on to this! Don't let go!
Don't move.
can keep the pre-clear from shifting on the track or coming to present time.
One guy's grabbing for my wallet. I'm beating his
Another
hand.
difficulty with the time track is caused by the denier.
No, I can't find anything else.
Okay. Is there an earlier incident like this?
No. No, I can't see anything. There's just nothing there.
A denier hides a part of the time track by implying it's not there or should not be viewed.
Nothing. There's nothing.
A pre-clear with a denier feels like there's no incident present.
No, there's nothing there.
A denier such as there's nothing there will make the pre-clear believe the engram doesn't exist.
No.
Other examples of deniers are,
I don't know what's going on!
You can't remember anything at all.
I can't remember anything.
I can't tell.
again, because these command phrases are interpreted literally, this will mean that he can't tell the auditor the engram. The most upsetting of commands is the grouper. An action phrase which, literally translated, means that all incidents are in one place on the time track.
When I was 17 with my boxing coach.
Now pull yourself together.
No, later with my wife.
Everything's all screwed up!
No, back when I was in the war.
There's no time!
Groupers create the illusion that the time track is tangled up into a ball, so that all the incidents are at the same point in time. Another difficulty with the time track is the misdirector. This would be a phrase which, when the auditor sends the pre-clear in one direction, makes the pre-clear go in another direction.
Is there an earlier incident like this?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Is this an earlier incident? I don't know. Maybe it's later?
Okay.
Some examples of misdirectors are
Ow! You do everything backwards.
Not this way! The other way!
I don't know whether I'm coming or going.
misdirectors such as these send the pre-clear in the wrong direction, making him go earlier when he should go later, or go later when he should go earlier.
I'm sorry, I can't tell. I don't know whether I'm coming or going.
All right.
Now, these action phrases could really trouble an auditor, but if you know how to spot them, there's an additional technique you can use to get your pre-clear moving again.
I'm sorry. I'm trapped. I just feel sort of stuck. I'm trapped. I'm trapped.
The phrase, "I'm trapped," is a holder coming through. The pre-clear can't move in the engram because this phrase is somewhere in it.
Say I'm trapped.
I'm trapped. I'm trapped.
The solution is to have your pre-clear repeat the action phrase over and over to take the charge out of it. This technique is explained in the book and is illustrated in detail in the film entitled The Repeater Technique.
I'm trapped.
It's important to understand these 5 classes of engram commands. The repeater technique requires that the auditor think like an engram, so he can recognize when these phrases are coming through. Listen to the literal meaning of what the pre-clear is saying and observe his actions on the time track. This will tell you what action phrases are standing in the way of your progress.
I keep hearing her say, "Get out."
But regardless of what content you encounter in an engram, if you simply follow the auditor's code and the proper Dianetic procedure, you'll get your pre-clear through it. In Chapter 9, Part 2 of the therapy section of the book, you'll find many more examples of each of the 5 types of action phrases under the heading Special Classes of Commands. The primary business of the auditor is to keep the pre-clear moving on the time track and reducing engrams. But an engram would not be an engram if the pre-clear could contact it easily.
I don't see anything.
And whatever troubles the pre-clear will also trouble the auditor. When an engram is contacted, the pre-clear's analytical power is reduced by the unconsciousness contained in the engram, and he'll think and speak straight out of the engram he's in.
I don't know what he's saying. I can't hear anything.
And he'll perform on the track quite literally as these engrams state. For example, a pre-clear who has an engram containing the phrase, "Don't come near me," would find herself in session wandering around the track going nowhere near that engram.
There was no. No. I was about.
Anything the pre-clear does about engrams and any words he uses to describe the action are usually contained in those engrams.
It won't work. I know it won't work.
The moment the pre-clear acts or responds as though he's not moving, or the moment the file clerk won't give forth data, then something is wrong. And that something has to do with the 5 classes of commands that send the pre-clear in various directions on the track without his permission. They are bouncers, which send the pre-clear soaring back toward or into present time.
Run! Run away!
Get up! Get up! Get up!
Don't ever come back.
Holders, which keep him right where he is in the engram.
Hold on to this! Don't let go!
Don't move.
Deniers, which make him believe that the engram doesn't exist.
I can't tell.
I don't know what's going on!
You can't remember anything at all.
I can't remember anything.
Groupers, which tangle all the incidents together in one place on the time track.
There's no time! Now pull yourself together.
Everything's all screwed up!
And misdirectors, which send the pre-clear in wrong directions to wrong places on the time track.
Not this way! The other way!
Ow! You do everything backwards.
I don't know whether I'm coming or going.
Listen to what the pre-clear is saying.
I'm sorry, I can't tell. I don't know whether I'm coming or going.
Observe how he's conducting himself along the time track.
Don't ever come back. I can't even see what happens next.
Or what type of reaction he's having.
No, I can't see anything. There's just nothing there.
And conclude from that what sort of command is troubling him. For example, the auditor returns the pre-clear to the prenatal area and suddenly finds him talking about something which happened when he was 5 years old.
She's saying, get out, get out.
He returns him again, and now he's talking about something which happened when he was 10 years old.
I'm 10 years old.
The auditor, observing any such reaction as this, knows he is handling a bouncer. It says, get out, and the pre-clear gets out of that engram.
There's no one around.
This could trouble an auditor. But there's a technique you can use to help your pre-clear contact the engram containing such a word or phrase.
It won't work. I know it won't work.
Well, take another look. Let's go to the earliest moment of pain or discomfort.
The phrase, it won't work, is an engram command coming through.
It won't work. I'm telling you, it won't work.
Have the pre-clear repeat that phrase over and over.
Okay, go over that. Say it won't work.
It won't work. It won't work. It won't work.
This is called the repeater technique. Having the pre-clear repeat such phrases can cause him to come into contact with the engrams which contain them.
It won't work. Ow. My stomach hurts. It won't work.
Her stomach pain is a somatic turning on. The engram has been contacted.
That's my mother. Talking to herself. Oh, this is a prenatal.
Good. Let's pick up the entire engram. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
Okay.
You may have seen people use a similar technique in life. They'll repeat a word or phrase over and over to help them recall something.
Oh, guess what? I ran into Jack Miller the other day. Who? Oh, come on, you remember Jack Miller? Jack Miller? Miller. Brian's roommate from college. Oh my gosh, I don't believe it. So how is it?
Auditing means to listen. It also means to compute.
Okay.
The repeater technique requires cleverness from the auditor.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think this is an incident. I don't believe it. No, I don't believe it.
She must learn to think like an engram. Being clever is being able to pick out from the pre-clear's conversation or actions just what the engrams contain, which will prevent her from reaching them or progressing through them.
Say, I don't believe it.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Here's an example of the repeater technique procedure. If you discover, for instance, the pre-clear insists that he or she is trapped, make him repeat the phrase.
I'm sorry. I'm trapped. I just feel sort of stuck. I'm trapped. I'm trapped.
Say I'm trapped.
I'm trapped. I'm trapped. I'm trapped.
This should not be a rapid, unmeaning repetition, but a slow repeat of the phrase.
I'm trapped.
Keep going over it.
I'm trapped. I'm trapped.
Repetition of such a phrase over and over sucks the pre-clear back down the track and into contact with an engram which contains it.
Trapped. I'm stuck. There's all this stuff on top of me.
If all goes on schedule, the pre-clear will very often let out a chuckle or a laugh of relief, or perhaps merely feel relieved. The phrase has been sprung. The engram is contacted.
I know what this is. This is that time all that stuff fell on top of me.
Help, I'm trapped.
Trapped.
Run the engram. Go to step 5 of the Dianetics procedure and say, begin at the beginning and recount it.
Begin at the beginning and recount it.
Continue auditing per the rest of the steps of the Dianetics procedure.
I'm in my grandma's attic. There's all this really neat stuff in there. I look up and see a model plane on top of the bookshelf. It's real high, so I have to get a stool so I can get that plane down. I get up on the stool and I fall. And all this stuff comes down on top of me. I'm stuck and I'm trapped.
Good. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
In my grandmother's attic. And there's all this really cool stuff there. And I want to get this model airplane off the top shelf. It's way up high and I have to grab the stool. And I climb up on the stool. I'm reaching for the model airplane.
As he goes back along the track contacting engrams, the pre-clear can re-experience the unconsciousness common in every engram. He may yawn, fumble around, appear doped, start to fall asleep, and so forth. The unconsciousness in the engram is releasing, or boiling off, as auditors call it. And it's important to let this occur without interruption for as long as necessary.
All this stuff's on top of me and I'm trapped.
What does it feel like?
It's heavy. And it's dusty and there's dust everywhere. And there's all this stuff on top of me and I'm trapped.
Now, it may happen that this engram will not release, having too many before it, but it will not release only in the case it has that same phrase in an earlier engram. Continue with repeater technique, making the pre-clear go earlier and earlier for it.
That's it. I don't see anything new. And like I said, there's all this stuff on top of me and I'm stuck and I'm trapped.
Tell the pre-clear to go to another earlier incident and have him repeat the phrase.
All right, let's go to another earlier incident. I'm trapped.
I'm trapped.
There's a law about this. When any phrase or word in an engram will not reduce, the same phrase or word occurs in an earlier engram. Using the repeater technique toward a known engram will reach the first time that engram appears in the bank.
Go over it again.
I'm trapped. I'm trapped.
If you keep asking for it, you will get it.
Continue.
I'm trapped. I'm trapped. I'm getting a headache.
Okay, keep going over it.
I'm trapped. I'm trapped! My headache's getting worse.
His headache is a somatic which is getting stronger as he approaches the engram.
Oh my God, I'm trapped. I'm afraid I'm trapped. I'll never get out of this place as long as I live. I'm trapped. Hey, that's my mother's voice.
Listen to the words and repeat them, please.
She's crying. She's saying, I'm trapped. I'll never get out of this place as long as I live. I'm trapped. How could I marry such a man?
When the pre-clear is in contact with the engram which contains the phrase, go to step 5 on the Dianetics procedure card and run the engram.
Good. Begin at the beginning and recount it.
I hear my mother's voice, and she's crying. She's pounding on her stomach. My head hurts. She's saying, I'll never get out of this place as long as I live. I'll never be free of this man. How can I marry such a man? She's saying I'm trapped.
Continue to run the incident per the steps on the Dianetics procedure card until the pre-clear is cheerful about it. If it does not reduce, use the repeater technique to go earlier until you find one that will reduce. Use the repeater technique sparingly and only when the pre-clear is returned to an engram and you have something specific that you know is in the bank. The first, last, and only job of the auditor is to find the earliest engrams available and erase them. Here's what to do. Keep the pre-clear moving on the time track.
Is there an earlier incident like this?
Reduce or erase everything you get your hands on.
Go back to the beginning and go over it. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact.
Deduce from the remarks of the pre-clear, in or out of session, what must be his bouncers, holders, groupers, misdirectors, and deniers.
Say I'm trapped.
And keep it solidly in mind that the #1 goal is basic. The earliest moment of pain and unconsciousness. While no two people are exactly alike, and no two cases follow the exact same pattern, the tools of Dianetics will always lead you to your ultimate goal, clearing the reactive mind of its engrams. In the chapter entitled The Laws of Returning, you'll find much more information about the repeater technique, including several examples of how to use this technique in session.